Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 5. Narad Muni cursed by Prajapati Daksha. Text number 37. Varnaistribhir amuktanam amimam satakarmana vighata shreyasa papa lokayorubhayo kritaha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. Prajapati Daksha said, "My sons were not at all freed from their three debts. Indeed, they did not properly consider their obligations. O Narad Muni, O personality of sinful action, you have obstructed their progress toward good fortune in this world and the next, because they are still indebted to the saintly persons, the demigods, and their father." Purport by Srila Prabhupada. As soon as a Brahmana takes birth, he assumes three kinds of debts. Debts to great saints, debts to the demigods, and debts to his father. The son of a Brahmana must undergo celibacy or brahmacharya to clear his debts to the saintly persons. He must perform ritualistic ceremonies to clear his debts to the demigods. And he must beget children to become free from his debts to his father. Prajapati Daksha argued that although the renounced order is recommended for liberation, one cannot attain liberation unless one fulfills his obligations to the demigods, the saints, and his father. Since Daksha's sons had not liberated themselves from these three debts, how could Narad Muni have led them to the renounced order of life? Apparently, Prajapati Daksha did not know the final decision of the Shastras. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.41, Devarshi bhutapta nrinam pitrinam na kinkaro nayam rinicha rajan sarvatmana yasharanam sharanyam gato mukundam parihritya kartam. Everyone is indebted to the demigods, to living entities in general, to his family, to the pitas, and so on. But if one fully surrenders to Krishna, Mukunda, who can give one liberation, even if one performs no yajnas, one is freed from all debts. Even if one does not repay his debts, he is freed from all debts if he renounces the world for the sake of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose lotus feet are the shelter of everyone. This is the verdict of the Shastra. Therefore, Narad Muni was completely right in instructing the sons of Prajapati Daksha to renounce this material world immediately and take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Unfortunately, Prajapati Daksha, the father of the Haryashvas and Savalashvas, did not understand the great service rendered by Narad Muni. Daksha therefore addressed him as Papa, the personality of sinful activities, and Asadhu, a non-saintly person. Since Narad Muni was a great saint and Vaishnava, he tolerated all such accusations from Prajapati Daksha. He merely performed his duty as a Vaishnava by delivering all the sons of Prajapati Daksha, enabling them to return home back to Godhead. The Prajapati Daksha is very angry at Narad Muni because Narad Muni instructed Prajapati Daksha's sons to directly take sannyas after brahmacharya without going through the grahastha-ashrama and the vanaprastha-ashrama. Now, Daksha is very angry also because as a Prajapati he has got the duty to increase the population populate the universe. Periodically, this universe is destroyed and it has to be recreated. So, when the partial destruction happens, the planets are not destroyed, they are inundated by a deluge of water. And only the living beings in the middle and the lower planetary systems have to be regenerated. They had to be given new birth. So, Prajapati Daksha, having taken the responsibility as Prajapati, Prajapati means those who populate the universe at the beginning of the creation. Secondary creation or the primary creation, both. So, he first of all generated his own progeny, 10,000 sons named Haryashvas. And again, 1,000 sons, the Savalashvas. And both these set of sons, when they went to a holy place to perform austerities to beget, in order to prepare themselves to beget good progeny, so they were instructed by Narad Muni in the holy place because they were ready for preparing themselves to go back to Godhead without necessarily going through the Grihastha-ashrama and the Vanaprastha-ashrama. Directly take sannyas. Now, Prajapati Daksha is still not aware, in spite of being aware of some of the principles, the relevant principles which are required for his performing his duties. He is not aware of the higher principles, which are the principles for ultimate deliverance of a conditioned soul in this material world. The gradual path of progress that is generally recommended for a common person, that is, one has to go through these 4 ashramas: Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyas. These are the orders of spiritual life, ashrama dharma. But under the guidance of a pure devotee, a Vaishnava spiritual master, one can actually directly take up the path of pure devotional service and need not necessarily go through all the 4 ashramas for spiritual advancement. In fact, one need not even formally go through any of the stages of the development of the varnas or the ashramas. Not required. So this confidential path of direct devotional service is not known to even the big Vedic scholars, even those conversant with the Dharma Shastras, Varnashrama Dharma, rules, regulations. Even they are not conversant necessarily because they are not fortunate to learn of these things from the pure devotee spiritual master. So some rare fortunate soul may come in touch with a pure devotee spiritual master and take up the path of direct devotional service to advance very quickly in Krishna consciousness and achieve perfection in life. So Prajapati Daksha is a typical example of a person who is following the principles of the Vedic Dharma, but is unaware of the higher principles, the confidential principles revealed only in the confidential parts of the Vedic literature. So, as Prajapati Daksha is pointing out in this verse, my sons were not at all freed from their 3 debts. Actually, Shastras describe 6 debts for every human being. That is, here the 3 debts mentioned are covered in this 6 debts which are referred to in the Bhagavatam verse, 11th canto, 5th chapter, 41st verse. So what are the 6 debts? Deva, Rishi, Bhuta, Apta, Nrinam, Pitrunam. Deva refers to our debt towards the Devatas. Our life in this material world is dependent on the supplies by the arrangement of the Supreme Lord through the Devatas. Just like we receive sunshine from the sun planet by the control of the sun god. Now we are utilizing sunshine in so many ways. Life is sustained because of the sunshine. So this sunshine we are utilizing, so we are indebted to the sun god. We are utilizing air. We are breathing. The air circulation in the whole universe is regulated by Vayudeva. And you have the example in the Bhagavatam itself, when Dhruva Maharaj was performing tapasya. So, as he made advancement in his practice of meditation, according to the Ashtanga Yoga system, then at a certain stage, when he identified his consciousness with the totality of the consciousness present in the whole universe, then when he stopped breathing, everyone started experiencing suffocation, including the Devatas and the controller of the of this air circulation itself. So then all the Devatas being perturbed, they actually approached Lord Vishnu. And Vishnu said, don't worry, I will set right this situation, because it is only due to the tapasya being performed by Dhruva that the whole circulation of the universe has become blocked. So these are all subtle laws that are working in this universe. That somebody, generally people, they have to follow the laws, the rules, the regulations which are set forth by the Supreme Lord through the Devatas. Now, Devatas are regulating all the supplies of air, of the water, of the sunshine, moonshine, of fire, everything. Just like we can't grossly see the control, but if we use our intelligence a little and try to understand from the explanations given in the scriptures, just like the fire element, very simple to understand. You require to utilize fire for different purposes. So first of all, you require what is called as fuel. Now the fuel has got inherently fire in it. But that fire has to be kindled and it requires certain favorable conditions for the fire to actually burn in that fuel after it is kindled. So, different kinds of fuel have different kinds of calorific value. You see, all kinds of fuel don't give out the same quantity of heat. Fire essentially we utilize for the heat that is available in fire. So different fuels have different degrees of calorific value, different degrees of heat they have. So accordingly, for different purposes, we utilize different kinds of fuel for different purposes. The same fire can be used for just heating a little water. A small quantity of food you want to cook, a small fire is enough. But if you have to melt iron, just like in the iron and steel industry, they need a blazing fire which will go up to temperatures beyond the melting point of iron. I don't know how much is it? 1400 degrees centigrade. Beyond that. Now, how much heat can the fire generate depends on what kind of fire it is. At the end of the duration of life in this universe, there is a big fire that is generated from the bottom of the universe when Sankarshana becomes slightly angry and he raises his eyebrows and a big fire is generated which burns up all the planets and everything in this universe. So what is that kind of fire? The fire of universal destruction. We can't measure the temperature of that fire. It burns away everything. So, try to understand this fire element is controlled by the fire god, Agni Deva. Now, this power of control is bestowed upon this Agni Deva by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu. Every Devata, not only Agni Deva, every Devata is given this power of controlling, regulating for the sake of sustaining life in the different planets by Vishnu. Therefore, we understand Vishnu is the original maintainer, original provider of everything. Through the Devatas it happens that making that provision, it happens through the Devatas. Now the Devatas, they don't have absolute control. Just like when Dhruva was doing meditation and Vayudeva unable to regulate the air circulation, everyone started feeling suffocation, the air circulation stopped in the whole universe because Dhruva stopped breathing. So, point is we are indebted to the Devatas who under the direction of the Supreme Lord are regulating all the supplies. Then Rishi, this sages who have given us knowledge. All knowledge is coming down in the parampara system. So there are different kinds of paramparas. Essentially for dissemination of knowledge systematically, there are the rishis. And they first of all receive the knowledge from Krishna through Brahma. at the beginning of creation. And then they propagate this knowledge to the descendants. And all knowledge we are indebted to these rishis. Whatever be the kind of knowledge that we have. Bhuta, general living entities. Now, as human beings at least, we can easily understand that we are dependent upon different living beings for different supplies. Just like the cow gives us milk. The honey bee produces honey by taking the nectar from different flowers. It does something to produce honey. Now, we cannot do that in the laboratory. Can any scientist analyze the composition of honey, which is being produced by the honeybee, and then take those extract from different flowers and do some chemical processing, whatever processing, chemical or otherwise, and produce honey? Can anybody do it? The cow eats grass and drinks some water and breathes some air, and it mixes that in its stomach and produces milk. Now, what is the nutrition value of milk as compared to the nutrition value of grass, water, and the air that it breathes? There is no comparison at all. So what is the cow doing? So Prabhupada explains in one morning walk conversation that the cow has got to generate milk, achintya shakti, inconceivable potency to do that. The honey bee has got inconceivable potency to generate honey by taking some extract from some different flowers and doing its own processing, whatever it does. So, these living entities we are indebted because we cannot produce these things. Just like the milk is converted into yogurt or curd, dahi. How does it happen? It happens by those, lactose bacteria? Lactose is converted to lactic acid. That's what the scientists say. Whatever that may be, nobody can actually do this conversion without the help of those microorganisms. So in this way, we are indebted to so many different living beings. That's called the debt towards bhuta, means other living beings. Apta, our beginning from our parents, other relatives and friends, our near and dear ones, our well-wishers, we are all dependent. When a child is born, it is totally helpless. Totally helpless. And then as it grows up, it learns it develops how to survive, how to live, how to manage. But otherwise, totally dependent. So, apta, we are indebted to our parents, our relatives, our friends, our well-wishers, etc. Nrinam, mankind in general, just like in human society, everybody does not grow their own cotton. Everybody does not weave that cotton to make it, first of all, generate yarn, and then weave that yarn to make cloth, and then stitch that cloth to make some dress. Does everybody do that? No. For stitching, we have got tailor, somebody doing tailoring service. Somebody is growing cotton. Somebody is weaving that cotton by producing a yarn and then weaving that yarn, the weaver. So many ways we are dependent, isn't it? So that is called Nrinam, indebted to mankind in general. Then Pitrunam, the forefathers. specifically from the forefathers in a particular family or dynasty, we get some specific benedictions. Just like the Kshatriya dynasties, the power to rule that is passed down from father to son, and that is the significance of these particular dynasties, this dynasty of the sun god, Surya Vamsha or Chandra Vamsha. And Krishna, to perform his pastimes, when he appears as a Kshatriya, he appears either in the Surya Vamsha or the Chandra Vamsha. In Surya Vamsha, he appeared as Lord Rama. And Chandra Vamsha, he appeared as Krishna himself, as the son of Vasudeva. So the Raghu dynasty, Yadu dynasty. So these dynasties, this is the descendants are indebted to the forefathers for getting that power to rule. In the case of Kshatriyas, or in the case of Vaishyas, the intelligence to generate wealth, business acumen, Vaishyas have it. Where do they get it from? One of the sources is the family in which they're taking birth. So like this, we are indebted to our forefathers also. So these 6 different dependencies, because of this debt we have to clear before we actually aim for liberation from material bondage. So Shastras say the human being has to perform Pancha Mahayajna, at least 5 kinds of different sacrifices a householder has to do. This is the specific duty of the householder. Householder ashrama, the Grihastha ashrama, is meant for clearing these 6 kinds of debts, of which Daksha is mentioning 3 kinds of debts. 3 is a subset of these 6. So here the 3 are mentioned as saintly persons. That is combined within Devatas, Rishis, and saintly persons, Rishis. The demigods are Devatas, father within the category of Apta. So this Bhagavatam verse says, even though we are indebted to these 6 kinds of personalities, if somebody has taken shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, Krishna, after completely surrendering to him and being engaged in his pure devotional service, such a person, na kinkaro, he is not a servant of anybody. Nayam rinicha rajan, neither he has got any obligation or debt. Because Sarvatmana Yasharanam Sharanyam, the Supreme Lord, who is the super soul of all living beings, soul of all souls, and is actually worthy of giving shelter to everyone. Ultimately, these devatas, these rishis, whatever they are giving, they themselves are receiving from the Supreme Lord at the beginning of creation. And that is being passed down. So ultimately, it is only the Supreme Lord who is giving us all this, supplying all this. He is the ultimate provider and the maintainer. Eko bahunam yo vidadhati kaman. Nityo nityanam chetanas chetananam. So only one independent Supreme Lord is the maintainer of everyone else. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, this is very nicely explained. Krishna is the only personality belonging to the Ashraya Tattva. There are 2 principles operating in this material world. Ashraya Tattva and Ashrita Tattva. All the living beings, including these devatas, rishis, everyone belongs to the Ashrita Tattva, the dependent category of living beings. Krishna is the only one who is the provider, who is independent. Not only independent, he is the provider, he is the source, he is the giver of all the necessities for all the living beings. Of course, he does it through the devatas, through the rishis, etc. But he is the Ashrita Tattva. Now, this higher confidential understanding is not known to Daksha. Therefore, he is accusing Narad Muni that you have obstructed their progress toward good fortune in this world and the next. Because unless one clears one's debts, one cannot make progress towards higher stages of existence in this world. Just like one generally progresses in the gradual path of progress from human form of life on this earth planet, one progresses to the Pitraloka, the higher planets in the upper planetary system. Then from there to Swarga, the heavenly planets. And from there to Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapoloka, Satyaloka. This is the gradual path of progress. But it is very, very slow. It is very slow. Millions of lifetimes are required of following all the rules and regulations of Varnashrama Dharma. But if somebody takes to pure devotional service, according to Shukadeva Goswami, one moment is enough to perfect your life and go back to Godhead. One moment. And when Parikshit Maharaj was very anxious that I have only 7 days' time and I want to prepare myself for going back to Godhead. So what should I do? Of course, Parikshit as a pure devotee knew what he has to do. But taking a humble position that I am just a Kshatriya, I am a king. So I have to be guided by saintly persons, by Brahmanas, by other saintly persons, sadhus. So in an assembly of sadhus, with folded hands, he made a request. Kindly guide me. What should I do next 7 days to prepare for quitting this body? So the saintly persons began to discuss among themselves, and they could not come to any consensus. First of all, most of them thought 7 days is very little time. They are thinking of the gradual process of progress. Whereas even Parikshit Maharaj knew, as a pure devotee, the only path for making quick progress and go back to Godhead directly is this path of pure devotional service, Bhagavata Dharma. But he did not overrule the saintly persons assembled there out of respect for them. He himself took a humble position. That is the characteristic of a Vaishnava. Even though actually he is more advanced than all those other saintly persons. He has already made his advancement. He is a pure devotee. But still, he took a humble position, and Krishna arranged Shukadeva Goswami to enter that assembly to reach that place. So Shukadeva Goswami was wandering carefree, without any particular purpose, without any particular engagement, completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness. He was oblivious to all the social etiquette and rules and regulations. But when he entered that assembly, How did he come to that particular place? He is constantly in touch with the Supreme Lord within his heart. Prabhupada explains this in the 3rd chapter, 17th verse. Yastu atmaratireva syat atmatriptascha manavaha atmanyeva cha santushta tasya karyam na vidyate. One who is completely self-realized, one who is takes pleasure in the self alone. Now, self is two kinds of selves inside. I as a spirit soul and the super soul, Paramatma. Both are seated in this body, inside the heart. And a perfectly self-realized soul actually realizes not only himself as spirit soul, also realizes the super soul. And ultimately, that culminates in realizing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So this is the most confidential knowledge. So somebody who has got this most confidential knowledge, for such a person there is no duty, there is no need to follow any of the conventional rules and regulations. There is no need to perform different kinds of obligatory duties in terms of Pancha Mahayajna, to liquidate debts towards devatas or saintly persons or father or parents or other living entities. No. Simply by being surrendered to Krishna and always engaged in devotional service to Krishna, one is completely freed from all debts and one is perfectly situated in one's own constitutional position. Jivera Swaruphoy Nityera Krishna Das. This constitutional position. This is a perfection. In fact, all the rules and regulations are meant to bring us to this perfection, a stage of perfection. Now, Daksha knows only the gradual process to come to this stage. He is not telling that they shouldn't have taken sannyas. He is telling they have prematurely taken sannyas. But what he doesn't know is that under the guidance of a pure devotee like Narad Muni, one can directly take up the path of pure devotional service and make rapid advancement. According to Shukadeva Goswami, one moment is enough. And to assure Parikshit Maharaj, Shukadeva Goswami cites a historical example. Khatvanga Rishi, Khatvanga Muni. In one muhurta, he perfected his practice of Krishna consciousness and went back to Godhead. One muhurta. One muhurta is just 48 minutes. So that is enough. So Parikshit has 7 days. So he assures Parikshit, you have a lot of time. You simply sit and hear Bhagavad. That's enough. Completely absorb yourself in that. So that is Bhagavata Dharma. Simply engaging in pure devotional service, particularly hearing and chanting the name, form, qualities, etc. of the Supreme Personality of God, Krishna. One can achieve all perfection, provided one is guided by Shukadeva Goswami or his representative, Srila Prabhupada. Only then it is possible. Independently somebody tries this, it's not going to work. So, Narad Muni, not being conversant with this confidential knowledge, is accusing, Daksha is accusing Narad Muni that you have misled my sons, obstructed their progress. I'll stop here. Prantarat Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.